Hello everyone, my name's Colin and you are watching ClassyHerps. Okay, so I'd like to welcome everyone to ClassyHerps. And you can see my little Chinese water dragon there as he just grabbed that roach, my Dubia roach, off of my feeding tongs. Okay, so that was just a little cool thing to show you feeding about these Dubia roaches today, because I'm going to be telling you about how to care for and breed these Dubia roaches. So here we go. Okay, so this video is pretty much for anyone that has any lizards or, you know, any reptiles that eat insects, because that's a big thing. What to feed them. Most people go with the common pet store item, which is crickets. And I did crickets for 2 years or so, and I regret doing that. Let me tell you, if you're thinking about getting into anything that eats, you're planning on feeding crickets, they smell really bad, and you'll find that out. Crickets smell really bad. They don't live very long. They really don't. They eat a lot. They poop a lot, and honestly, they're really not very healthy. The amount of good stuff in them compared to the shell and everything that is nothing is not a very good ratio. Dubia roaches, on the other hand, I found out are about the opposite of crickets. These little Dubia roaches right here are really a godsend for anyone that keeps any kind of. So I'm just going to give you just one example. Crickets are average about 18% protein. Now, protein's a really big thing for your animals. They need a lot of protein in their diet, and they're only 18%. Dubia roaches are 35%, which is really high compared to almost any other animal in the world. They're very high. The ratio of shell on the outside to the good stuff on the inside, what really matters, is a lot better than crickets, let me tell you that. And also, these guys don't smell. They don't make any sound, and males live up to a year, females live up to 2 years. So, you know, you're not gonna lose them, because crickets only live like a month. I don't even really know. I don't do much with crickets, but I know these guys are about the opposite. If you have any questions, they don't bite. These guys don't fly. They don't really do anything but hide and breed. And they eat and they drink. But, you know, they're a really good insect, so I would advise everyone out there to get into these Dubia roaches, because they are really, really nice. Okay, so here, first off, I need to show you kind of the life cycle of a Dubia roach. Alright, to start out with, they're little babies, like this. And how they're like this, Dubia roaches are kind of in a shady area whether they're considered giving live birth or they lay eggs, because the eggs are actually inside of the adult female until they hatch, and then the babies actually crawl out of the mom. So whether you would consider that laying eggs inside of yourself and letting them hatch, or giving live birth, I guess that's up for you to decide. But this is what they come out looking like, maybe a little smaller, but that's a baby Dubia roach. And then, as they get a little bigger, which doesn't take very long, they grow fairly quickly. This is what they look like, maybe a month later. They're getting bigger, and then they keep getting bigger until they're about like this. And this is about as big as they get, and these are all nymphs I'm showing you here. These are what they call nymphs. This is about as big as a nymph gets, and as you can see, all the nymphs are kind of a dull color. There's no shine to them, really. They're brown, and yeah, they're just really dull looking. But something big is about to happen, because these Dubia roaches, they shed their skin every now and then when they grow, because they're kind of like reptiles. They have to shed to grow. But then once these Dubia roaches get to a certain point, I'm guessing it's going to be this guy's next shed, but you can't tell these male from female at all. There's no telling a difference. But once they shed, something really big is going to happen. So once those nymphs shed for one of the last times in their life, they're either going to show that they're a male or a female. This right here is a male. Males have wings. They just come out of their shed and they have wings. And you see how shiny it is. It's really unmistakable when you compare it up to a nymph. When we remember a nymph looked like this. Okay, so this is a male, and this is about as big as a male gets. And even though they have wings, they don't fly. They don't fly. Okay, and then when the females shed out, this is what a female looks like. This is actually the biggest female that I could find out of my breeders, just to show you guys how big they can get. This is the biggest roach I have, maybe 2 inches long. They're really, really thick-bodied. They don't have wings, as you notice. They look like a nymph, but they're shiny. They're black and they're shiny. They have little stub wings in the front if you look closely, but they're not developed at all. And it's really obvious to tell them apart. You know, they're really shiny and black. So that's an adult female, and so that's kind of the life cycle of a roach. And then when those male and females get together, they breed fairly quickly. Once they're adults, they can breed. Females lay about 30 babies a month, which is really cool. They just keep laying eggs and they don't die. Like a lot of insects die once they lay their eggs. These guys don't. And these females can breed like this for up to 24 months. It's 2 years of solid breeding they can give you. And babies take about 3 to 6 months to grow into adults from once they were little babies and just born. So that's really not that long of a time. And then they just live for a long time. And males live about a year, but that's the life cycle of a roach. Okay, and they also need food. They don't go through the food nearly as quickly as they do go through the water, but food is also important. I'll show you what I do for that. Okay, so right now, roaches are in a very high demand because people have realized the potential behind them. And so because of that demand, right now they're pretty expensive. For 25 adult females, the average price is about $75 and about $50 or so for 25 males. But I'm hopefully going to get some up on my website that are a lot cheaper than that because I have way more than I could ever feed off myself. But I would strongly suggest that you get into this because I bought a package of 25 females and 5 males, and I'll show you what this has turned into. You'll get to see as I go through this video. It hasn't even been a year. No, not even close to a year, and I'll show you what these have just exploded into. But yeah, those 25 females and 5 males have made a colony of something that I will never be able to feed off to my animals because there's so many. You can see this is my breeder tub. These are all adults here, mainly females. I like to keep a ratio of 1 to 5 female to male because the males sometimes eat the other males' babies if there is a higher concentration of males. And then you can also see all the little babies running around in here. These are even smaller than the ones I showed you. But you can see the little babies. There's thousands of them in here, and I clean this tub once a month and I take out all the babies and so they can have more. But there's thousands of them in here, and probably 100 if not more adults in here. So that's pretty impressive how they've done that. And how I did this was basically when they had babies, I would take them out, raise them up. I would use as much as I needed as food, but then the ones that grew up, I just put into here, and so this is a separate tub I have here for the nymphs that I'm raising up or keeping as food, and you can see there's thousands upon thousands of roaches in here. Just absolutely an unreal amount of roaches in here, and yeah, there's a lot of roaches, you know. So I don't know. I just wanted to make that point to you guys that this is a great investment, that I haven't bought crickets since I bought those original 25 because they got started right away, and there's more food here than I could ever use, ever. And they're a lot healthier than any other kind of insect out there right now, and there's no smell that comes out of this, even though it may look like it's terrible, may smell like a sewer, but no, they don't smell at all. Okay, so now for the care of these Dubia roaches. I think the #1 thing is heat. See, I have a heat mat under here that's just plugged right into the wall, so there's absolutely no restriction on it. It just heats up. And heat mats today are pretty safe. It's just one that I picked up at a pet store. I had it for 2 years now. Use it for an assortment of things. but I just set it under my tub, just a little heat mat, and that keeps it good. And then I guess it kind of stays at room temperature towards the top so they can pick where they want to go. But the heat is number one because if they escape into your room, which if you have an average room temperature of say 70 degrees, they'll die. They can't live without like 80, 90 degree heat, and it has to be pretty humid in there, but they get most of their humidity from the evaporating water dish, which I set the water dish over that. And now for water, because they can't drink water, they just can't really drink water. They would get most of their water from plants in nature, and I don't feed them plants very often. So what I do feed them are these water crystals here in this little dish that I picked up. You see a bunch of babies swarming around in it, but they all eat or drink, however you want to say, these water gel crystals. Alright, so the water crystals are pretty important. I'm going to show you two different things of what I think. I bought this off of the internet. You see it says water crystals. These are kind of expensive, but it's understandable because of you'd be amazed by how much this little amount can make. I also got this one, which I would recommend, from Home Depot. It's the same thing, but it's meant for plants. It's kind of smaller crystals, but it's a lot cheaper. Like, just like a palmful. You take a palmful of that or something, just not very much, and you put it in a gallon of water. And this, I've used some out of this, so it's not a very good example, but a palmful of that makes an entire gallon of this water crystal, which you then just dump into your bowl. And it's pretty simple, but you do have to stay on top of that because if you let them go without water, they'll die pretty quickly. Alright, so when it comes to feeding, I kind of have different views than a lot of people out there. I believe that what you feed your feeder is more important than what you put on your feeder. What I mean by this is, okay, I'm really into gut loading my insects compared to what most people do is dusting them or whatever they put on them before they feed them to their reptiles. And I do have a reason for this, because in nature, is it more likely that your gecko comes along a powder dusted roach, or is it more likely that your gecko comes along a roach that had just got done eating off of some dead animal or some plant, and it's full of this really good nutrient? I mean, honestly, which is more likely to happen? And I think that their digestive systems were just made to be able to handle digesting what's inside of it compared to just some powder on the outside. And I mean, either way, it's been proven, I suppose, that dusting with this calcium powder here works just fine. But I just do it this way, and honestly it's a lot easier because I've dusted before and I hated it, because you put your insect in here and you toss it around, and then calcium goes everywhere, and when you're taking the insect out, calcium's going everywhere, and by the time it gets to your reptile, there's hardly any left, and he gets it all over his face, and I don't even really know how they ingest any of that powder because it just wipes off on everything. And if you ever tried cleaning up calcium out of like carpet or something, it is right there up next to impossible. So I'm really opposed to that, and it was just a mess, and this is a lot easier, and my reptiles do great on this diet because I feed the roaches what I want my reptiles to eat. And that's a really high protein diet. So what I do here, this is chicken food. You see this, it's just kind of pelleted chicken food, real small pellets. That's good for the roaches because they have little mouths. You can pick this up, it's fairly cheap at any farm store. And then just to add some other stuff to it, these fish flakes right here, you can see, are about the highest food I've ever seen. Minimum protein is 47%, which is pretty high. And I also like to go with some turtle food because that's really high too, I found out, which is 42%. And because they need their calcium, I put the calcium in the food, and the roaches eat the calcium, which makes them full of calcium, and then the reptile. So that's my strategy on that. So I mix all this together, and then I give them that as their food. This is basically what I do. I get a big tub, make a big batch of this at once. This is all the chicken food. It's mainly chicken food, a lot of that. And then I'll put in my other stuff. These are the fish flakes. Put quite a bit of those in. I get my turtle food, and I put a lot of this in. And I mix it up. Alright, so now that's all mixed up, then we're going to take the calcium and we're going to put a lot of that in. Now we have this awesome mixture of food that we're going to give to our roaches. Alright, and then the only other thing that I can think of right now, how to care for them, is you need these egg crates, I guess you would say. I wouldn't go from your grocery store and get these because they might have salmonella on them, and that's just really not a risk I would want to take, because these things are like $1 for 50 at some places that you can just get the cardboard. You know, they're really cheap, and you can recycle them, and I use them over and over and over again, so that's all they need. And set them up vertically like this so the poop falls to the bottom, and everything should be good. Alright, so now I have to show you guys the bad part of cleaning roaches, or taking care of them. The cleaning part. I do this about once a month, and for these guys there's like maybe 1.5 inches of solid poop on the bottom, but it doesn't smell. It honestly doesn't. For my breeding tub there's hardly any poop, but I have to separate out the babies. And yeah, I just gotta clean all this poop out. So it's kind of difficult to separate them from poop sometimes, and I'm gonna show you guys how I do that. So you're going to want a big old tub that you're going to keep them in while you're messing with their tub. And the first thing I always do is take out the piece of cardboard and try to get as many out as you can, and shake off the poop, kind of dump it out in their tub. And then just break off all these roaches from here. I don't really think they mind a whole lot, but you just kind of got to do what you got to do to get them off of the cardboard. Just slam it against the sides a few times, take it around. Make sure that they're all off, because you wouldn't want that. And so now we just have some roaches in here, and we're going to have a lot more in there. So we're going to do that for all the cardboard pieces. Alright, so this is all the roach poop I got out of that one tub. Yeah, a lot of roach poop. Yeah, I didn't know insects could poop that much either until I got into this. But with this, I like to put this in the freezer for maybe a day to kill any eggs that might be in it. And then I like to put it in the garden, as I'm sure it's good fertilizer. Alright, so now just pulling out the cardboard, this is how many I have just off the cardboard, and that's how many are still in there. There's probably about the same amount, so we gotta get those out now. So what I usually do is just put the cardboard back in on them, and they should crawl onto it. Usually they do crawl onto it pretty quickly, and then you just do that process again. Okay, so now that I got as many as I can out, I just wanted to show you guys this, that there's probably over $1,000 of roaches in here that I've produced in under a year. And as you can see, there's absolutely no way. I mean, I have 3 animals that eat these. That's leopard geckos and a Chinese water dragon, hopefully getting my tegu soon. But I mean, there's no way that I could feed all of these roaches off. So hopefully I'm going to have a contest and give a lot of these away, and hopefully I can get them up on my website for sale. If there's anyone interested, because I have more than I can handle. But yeah, lots and lots of roaches in here. Alright, so once you've gotten out as many roaches as you can, just by like hand or whatever, don't try too hard because it's not really worth it. But once you've gotten out as many as you can, then we just kind of have to start separating the poop from the roaches. So what I found is I got a tub and I put a bunch of holes in it, kind of large holes, and then we're gonna have a tub underneath, and we're gonna sift the poop out, which is gonna fall through, and the roaches are gonna stay on top. And so that's how we're gonna do this. It's kind of a slow process, but it gets the job done. Alright, now I sifted it through again a few times, and now we're back into the tub. And as you can see, there's still a few small ones that have remained. There's actually quite a few. And so what I had to do about this is another straining technique, but this time with a lot smaller holes. And so this is going to take a little bit longer, but we got to get them all out. So it's the same process. You just dump it through, and roaches, baby roaches at their very smallest, are just a little bit bigger than a little kernel of roach poop, and so that's the only way this works. But yeah, you just kind of have to slowly let all the poop sift through, and hopefully all the roaches remain on top. Okay, now if you stay on top of all of that, and you make sure you keep it clean and don't let it really build up a whole lot, then you can definitely have your own colony of roaches and make your own reptile food. Thank you for watching. This has been Classy Herps.